The podcast you are about to listen to is an account of the movies which befell a group of horror fans, in particular, Tara Garwood and her intrepid friend, Matt Lolich. Had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, although they would have wished, to see as much of the mad and macabre as we're to see in those movies. For them, an idyllic summer movie became a nightmare, and they loved it. The movies that they watched were to lead to the creation of one of the most terrifying podcasts in the annals of American history. The Scary Movie Project.
Hello, everybody. This is the Scary Movie Project, the podcast where we talk about scary movies. I'm Tara.
And hi, I am Matt. And we've been waiting. We've always been waiting, says Meg Foster in Rob Zombie's Lords of Salem, which we can't wait to discuss. But you know something? We're excited about that, but we're a little more excited about the guest we have tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Folks, we have a gentleman by the name of J.W. Ocker. He is an author, a travel writer, if you will. Edgar Award winner. His newest book is Cursed Objects. I also recommend you read these two books by him, New England Grimpendium and A Season with the Witch.
Nice.
He also runs Otis, Odd Things I've Seen, cool places to check out. I'm a proud member of the Otis Club as well, I might add. We are thrilled to have him because this gentleman has taken a month of his life and lived it in Salem in October and wrote a book about it. And I am pretty excited to hear about some more details about it. So JW, thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks for the invite.
If I missed anything else, please tell us more about yourself. And then we're going to get into what it's like to live in Salem in October for a month.
No, it's going to be fun. Thanks so much for having me on here. This is going to be a lot of fun. I can already tell.
Okay.
So, how do you want to start?
Well, I think that we should start with, well, Salem is a great place. And if you haven't been, you need to go. I haven't been. I've been so bad. I've been quite often. I usually go in April. I go up there for Patriots Day weekend, go to see the Red Sox game, go to see the marathon, and I always have a day in Salem. I love it to death. We can talk about all the cool places. Your book was great. I kept reading every place. I thought to myself, oh yeah, that place was great. That place was great. My favorite is probably Count Orlox Nightmare Gallery. Quite frankly, that place is amazing.
No, I'm with you on that. 100%.
But your book is about you and your family lived in Salem for the entire month of October in 2015.
Yeah, 2015, right?
Okay,
mm-hmm.
Right. So, you don't need to give us a complete, word for word, but yeah, tell us about what that is like, and tell us your day to day and how that went.
Oh, it's so much fun. It was I just gotten off another book I did about Edgar Allan Poe that had me traveling the entire East Coast, crossing the ocean to London, everywhere he ever lived and set foot, I traveled to. And I was trying to figure out a way to not travel for the next book. It's hard when you're a travel writer to find that place. And me and my wife, Lindsay, had been going to Salem a couple of times a year since we met. We actually met down in Mid-Atlantic. We're from Maryland, Virginia. And we met down there, took road trips to New England, and eventually just moved to New England. So probably for 8 years before we actually moved there for a month, we've been going a couple of times a year. And it just hit me like, I did a travelogue about a person, Edgar Allan Poe. What about a travelogue about one place? And it had to be an interesting place, right? It had to be like unique. It wasn't I don't do the kind of writing where you can just pick an interesting city. Chicago, what's Chicago like for a month? It needed to be weird. It needed to be spooky. It needed to be unlike any other place. Kind of like Poe is unlike any other writer.
Right.
And Salem just hit me one day laying on the bed. I was like, Lindsay, how would you feel about moving to Salem for a month? And how would you feel for that month to be October? So that's how it started. And then cut to, me frantically trying to find a place to live for 31 days.
Right. I was thinking about that.
4 or 5 months before we actually had to do the stay in, because we lived there for a month, but then I had to write the book for a year after that. And it was hard. We got a bunch of lucky bounces to find places to live, because it had to be downtown, had to be right downtown, or this book wouldn't work. If I was just like visiting on the weekends, or if I was commuting in, because I already lived 40 miles away. So if I was just living 10 miles away, it didn't make any sense. So we did it, and the whole premise of the book was just, there's a million Salem books out there, but they're all about the witch trials. They're all history books.
Yes.
And I wanted to get at those are all fascinating. It's a huge contradiction, but I wanted to get the contradiction of the city. The city is always kind of fascinating me.
Yeah.
And doesn't make sense, and doesn't there's stuff about it that you can't figure out. So we moved there, and my entire mandate was visit every single attraction, because Salem is a city, but it's a small city. It's about 40,000 people, and its downtown is the downtown feels like a town. It's very walkable.
Yep.
I was there for 31 days, and I started recognizing people by sight all the time. Every single restaurant owner, every single, busker, all those people, you just kind of got to know them. So the idea was go to all the attractions, go to all the historical sites, because it's still, the witches are such a huge part of it. It's still going to be a witch trial book in some form or fashion, not a history book, but they're going to be a part of the story.
Right.
And then also talk to as many people as I could possibly do. And I thought that was, that was where the value of the book was, right? me going to visit wax museums and haunted houses is fun for me. I don't know how fun it is for other people to read. And the historical sites are dealt with better by historians. So my uniqueness, I thought, was I got to talk to as many people as I wanted. And because Salem is so weird, that's a wide, diverse group of people. So that's like tourists, that's like locals who hate, the witch
right.
part of it. That's like people that work there, people that rely on Halloween to make a living every year. Mayor, people, I always thought of her as like the mayor of Halloween Town. It has a mayor, it has a police chief, it has charities, it has all the usual stuff that cities have, which sounds dumb to realize that. But while we're all in costumes running around Essex Street, people are running a city.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got to get in there and just talk to everything, from the most mundane details to the most wild details. And it turns out there's not a lot of mundane details about Salem. Everything is a bit of a friction. Everything is a bit of a contradiction. Everything is fraught. There's a lot of history going on among everybody. And I just, such a good time. It was one of the if I had 5 top highlights of my life, living in Salem for those 31 days is one of them, for sure. Okay. And I have 7 kids. So some of their births don't matter. Not just kidding.
Wait, you have 7
No, I was
kids?
kidding. I have 3, but
okay,
I don't
I was gonna say, I was like, you had to find a place for a month for 9 people.
I will say though, I don't know if all 3 births make it in the top 5, but definitely living in Salem for 31 days made the top 5. So much so that me and Lindsay, my wife, we actually started looking for a house after we had to move out. That last day of moving out, November 1st, the boring November 1st.
Yeah.
So
I hate November 1st. I hate it. It's the worst day of the year.
It's the worst day. That and January 2nd are just 2 days. I wish we could just figure out a way to get around.
That's a good point.
They can't be live. So it was good. And then I get to write a book. So I wasn't just, so that 31 days was very important. Most of my adventures were during the 31 days. And then I got to do the research and pick up some loose ends and do all the sit down and writing and transcribing journals and organizing photos. So I kind of lived in my head. I had Salem in my head for a whole, year for that book. But those 31 days were such just I don't know. Again, if I get attacked by one of those mind-eating diseases later in life, I hope I keep those 31 days. Man, they were so good.
The one thing you need to keep, right?
Exactly. You can have the rest. It's fine.
One thing that I thought, which I don't know if you have been back, but I know just when you finished it, was the memorial up at Gallows Hill, I guess, was not built yet.
Yeah.
And so the last time I was there in 2018, it had just been built. Mm-hmm. And it is pretty interesting. It's really, really a cool looking memorial they put together. Yeah.
And my timing in that sense was kind of cool because, when I, in 2015, I think I put up maybe either the year the book came out or the year after the book came out. So either 2016 or 2017. Mm-hmm. And so I got to see the inside scoop on it being built and being planned, because a bunch of the historians I talked to were involved and some of the city leaders were involved. So I knew it was being built, but I got to visit it before it was built. So when I visited it, it was this unmanicured hump of rock behind a Walgreens. It's still behind Walgreens.
Right.
But at the time, there's no memorial there at all. There's nothing to see there. You just had to imagine in your head all these people getting hung there. And now it's a nice little civic monument. It's an nice arc of stone with names in it, and and not enough people go to it because
they don't know.
They don't know. It's about a mile outside the downtown. Right. So it's not within walking distance really. Even though I think I'd walk there. But it's cool that they've done that finally, because that was a big kind of missing tooth for Salem. They needed to do that at some point, and they finally did it. And it's great.
No, that is nice. I think I mentioned. Go ahead, Tara. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I have questions about a couple of the places from the blog posts that I've read on your site.
Yeah.
So I was curious first about the witch path and like, just can you tell us a little bit about that?
Are you talking about the Gallows walk? Are you?
I don't know. It was the witch path and it like ends in a graveyard.
Man, you might have stumped me. It's been a while since I read my book. The witch path ends in a graveyard.
In Salem?
Yeah. No, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't in Salem. Maybe it was outside.
Oh, you're talking about it. You're not. I know what you're talking about. The witch path. It's in Connecticut actually.
Oh, that's not in Salem?
No,
oh my
no,
God.
no. So here's the thing though. I'm glad you brought that up though.
Bad me, I assumed.
That's okay.
No. But it's a good segue because there are one of the things I've become obsessed with since Salem is witch memorials, and because of Salem, there are witch memorials all over New England and all over the world.
Yeah.
Like Europe killed way more people.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
The US ever did.
Yeah, we didn't do anything.
And isn't it true that we didn't actually burn any of our witches? It was Europe that did that.
We were hangers.
Yeah,
yes. we were hangers and pressers to death under rocks and things like that.
Giles Corey, that's right.
So all over New England now, there's plaques, there's stuff named after witches, there's bricks inlaid. And in Europe, they're starting to build museums and giant like memorials and stuff and I think it's 100% because of Salem, which is one of the things I give Salem a pass. So people will hate on Salem for like whatever dancing on the graves of the victims by throwing parties, but really that kind of PR has kept it up so much that every other city is following Salem's lead because Salem is witch city. As only 25 people died as a result of the witch trials in Salem, but and thousands and tens of thousands, 100,000 in Europe. But Salem was the whole entire time saying which city, and now everybody realizes, oh, we probably should all remember that time that we were really bad to elderly women, basically.
Yeah, that time that we were really crappy to women.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one of the times.
Oh, that one time.
One time, right.
That time that we did that thing where we were mean to women that we've never ever done again, ever.
Yeah. We learned our lesson, and we're like, let's not do this again.
Yeah. So I know I've been to the Witch Museum a couple times. The Witch Dungeon was good. The one where you sit in the pews in the church was very cool. Like I said, so the one I want to, Count Orlox Nightmare Gallery. Yeah. This place is amazing. It is a wax museum, I guess for lack of a better word. You may describe it better. Where you go in and it is a kind of $10, whatever it is. And you go in, no photos allowed. They're big on that. They won't let you do that. It is like a little corridor maze you walk through of, I don't know, 25, 50 wax figures of horror movie icons. Mm-hmm. Like Jack Nicholson from The Shining with the axe, the alien from the Alien movies, Reagan from The Exorcist. For me, it was like a dream come true. It was like the coolest place I've ever been in my life. I wanted to go back out and go right back in.
Yeah, it's one of the first places I visited Salem for the first time by myself, like whatever, 2000 in the early 2000s. And it had just opened that year. And I've gone back every single year. I've become friends with James. He runs it. He's a good guy.
They moved it now, though. It's in a different location.
I was going to ask if you've been to the new location. Have you?
So, last time I was there was Easter weekend. We were there on that Sunday or Saturday, and it was closed. And I was so mad because I brought more people with me, too. And I was like, this is the coolest place ever.
That is a danger in Salem. That is a danger in Salem that some of the stuff is closed at random times.
Yeah.
But now it's a much bigger place, much bigger. He has a lot more characters. Okay, and there's a little screening room in the back where you can sit down. He usually has some kind of movie playing. You can just sit back there and watch it. And them moving to Essex Street is the best thing for them because before they were on Derby Street. So a little bit out of the way, a little smaller place. But I always tell people when they say where to go, I say go to Count Orlox because if you're a horror movie fan, go to Count Orlox because he has all the major characters, a lot of 80s characters. He's big in the 80s horror movies. Yeah, and he's one of my proof points to say that Salem is not just Witch City and not just Halloween City. It's also kind of Monster City, right? Because there's no werewolf city and there's no vampire city. So so Salem just welcomes them all. There's whatever you want to do there.
I've been to vampire territory in Transylvania, but
that's true. They do the
close enough. But yeah, so if it wasn't, so I thought though on Derby, wasn't it right around the corner though from the graveyard where the little sit-down bench memorials are though? Wasn't it? Yeah. Okay.
It's across the road from they call it the haunted neighborhood, and beside the haunted neighborhood is the
I like
downtown.
The sound of that.
Yeah, it's a little street that has there's a witch store in one. There's another wax museum on the corner, and then the graveyard is up the street.
It's very controversial though because you go there in Halloween, so it's not around any other month but October. It's only around October. And well, I think maybe one or two of the places are open all year round or mostly months, but to see it full peak, it's October. They have fog machines going. It's crowded. They have like witch statues. But the problem is it's right beside the historical graveyard and the original witch trials memorial. So what you end up having is, you walk into the graveyard full of people, food and sausage, hot dogs, and like putting their
carnival.
Drinks on. It's a carnival inside the cemetery. And people kind of hate that. I think the past 2 years, they've actually shut down the cemetery during October.
Wow.
They say to historically take care of it, but I'm always kind of a little bit suspicious. I think they're just trying to keep people out of it.
That they just picked that timing on purpose there.
Yeah, but it feels very Salem in the haunted neighborhood for sure.
So I think it's from after your book came out, but I'm also curious about the Peabody Essex Museum, the Salem Witch Trials artifacts,
which they don't want to talk about. Like they're totally removed from it, right? They're a totally different deal.
Used to be. So that's this is one of the bad things about being a travel writer is places change and things change. So what you end up writing is an ossified strata of the fossil record, right? So So I had this entire storyline in Salem of Season with the Witch of this giant, massive art museum in the middle of Salem, 9th largest in the by area in the country,
right?
Who doesn't like the fact that it's in Salem? It wants to be in Boston, even though Boston has its own art museum.
Right.
It hates, it's the most funded place. It owns most of downtown. A lot of those t-shirt shops, a lot of those shops it owns. So it's very wealthy, very high-minded. It owns the Salem artifacts because it was built out of a bunch of small historical museums of Salem back in the day. One was a local history museum, which was full of like seafaring stuff because Salem was established by maritime captains basically. Right. And then a bunch of random stuff they brought back from their trips, and historical stuff like the Salem witch trial artifacts. But they kept them in the dungeon. Once they became a bigger museum, once they joined and had a new plan, a multi-billion-dollar plan, they hid all that stuff down in the basement, and then wouldn't talk about it. Hated it. Didn't like it at all. And as things change, they got a new president. And he's a little bit, and the plan is to shift more to local now. So now they have this reputation as a big time museum. And it's good. It's a good reputation. And now that we have that reputation, our brand is secure. We can start being a little spooky. So they let Kurt Hammett's collection of horror memorabilia in a few years ago.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
This year, it was really cool stuff, like all original movie stuff.
Wow.
And this year, for the first time in I think 30 years, they showed the witch trial artifacts, which are really amazing. They're out now. They opened in September. They're still open. Will be open through April actually. So there's a big time window to see them. But I have no idea what happens next. Like if they just take them back down to the basement and forget about them again, or if they figure out a way to do stuff with them. I have no idea, but it's an amazing exhibit.
Can you tell us about anything that you saw there, like any of the artifacts there?
Yeah, and it's funny, when I was doing Season with the Witch, they wouldn't let me in the archives, but I heard rumors of what existed, and pretty much everything every rumor was true. So they have like the artifacts from actual victims. So like chests and walking canes, and they have they have planks from the actual prison. They have all the documents. So original, they're showing them out they have them on display with the actual like warrants and accusations.
That's crazy.
And bills from the jailer, because the jailer billed the city for holding on to prisoners. And the original, all like the flowing scripts that's like brown on yellow historical documents, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it is there. If you didn't know there were witch trial stuff, you're like, oh, this stuff's pretty mundane. An old cane, an old ring, an old chest, an old this, that. But it's all from the original victim. So it is astounding. Crazy. It's a small exhibit. It's not huge, but it is powerful.
Yeah. I got to see that. My goodness.
No, I really think people should. Cause like I said, decades since they've done it. And I have no idea what the plan is after this. Like, I hope that they do it regularly or find a way to permanently do it, but who knows? I don't know what the plan is yet.
But that seems to be like museums. They always just have these exhibits for a month or a year and they move on to something like that.
Yeah.
So you interviewed, I know the director, the former, I guess at the time, you interviewed the mayor. So you got some down and dirty stuff there. Mm-hmm. You interviewed, I think, the director of the Witch Museum, I think you said in there too, right?
Yeah.
Which interview did you like most? And what was most interesting? What information did you get out of, what was the best one for you, I guess?
I think my favorite ones, my favorite one, it probably changes. I think at the time is probably talking to Steve the Vampire. He's one of the buskers.
The street performer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's there every year.
Yeah.
Dresses up like a blue vampire, looks like the Salem Lot vampire.
Yes, yes.
And he's just there. He's always there. Like, oh, I call him the Blue Santa Claus because I have pictures of him and my children as they grow up, you know.
That's awesome.
But I think these days, looking back on it, there's this, I can't remember his name, honestly, because I forgot to flip through the book for this interview. But he's a documentary filmmaker, and he just hated everything about Salem as a Halloween destination and Salem as a tourist destination.
Yeah.
He loves Salem. He loves, you know, its other history. He loved its community. He loved its art scene. But he hated that this place became, you know, Nightmare Before Christmas every year, you know? And that perspective is the one I wanted to hear the most, because it's such a true perspective. Like somebody like me, and I love the place, you know, although I was conflicted going in, so I wasn't sure how I felt about it, because I just visited for a Saturday and went back, whatever.
Right.
Hearing that was so valuable to me, to hear the other side of people who couldn't leave their neighborhoods because there's so much traffic on a weekend in October.
Yeah.
Of, you know, all the stuff they had to go through. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of curmudgeons. That's one of my favorite thing about people. I like it when they're just I like negative people. And hearing that, I was like, this is what I want to hear. Because the other thing about Salem is it's full of frictions. Like everything's a friction there. There's a friction between residents and tourists. There's a friction between business owners who want to run regular city businesses like jewelry stores and restaurants, and t-shirt and people who run more Halloween kind of based stuff like t-shirts and photography places, right? So there's that friction. There's a friction between the witches and the Christians. We saw street preachers, you know, on the weekends.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
Art and kitsch, like you said, the museum and the t-shirt shops. There's the friction between, you know, the politicians who want to run it a certain way and other politicians who want to run it other ways. Nothing in Salem is simple. Not, you know, there's tension between the witches and the city. Well, the witches always have tension. They're I love those people. There's tensions within witches, and witches have tensions. Witches in the city have tensions. Witches and Christians have tensions. Witches in Halloween have tensions. There's like they're in a pretty unique spot. The witches of Salem. I love those guys too.
So good point there to the witch. So I try to go in every Wiccan shop that's there. I don't know if I've been in all of them. I've tried as many as I can. I bought a lot of cool stuff. What there was one you mentioned. It was that big freestanding building, I guess.
Yeah,
one of the stores.
Crowhaven Corner.
I have not been in that one, but I think that was that's one of the big ones in town, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because like I said, I've been going to Salem for years and years before I wrote the book, and there's places I just wouldn't go in. I'm a big coward, so anything that makes me a little bit uncomfortable or awkward, like I don't like doing it. If something looks small inside, I won't go inside because I'm just so terrified somebody will say hi to me or something, you know. So Crowhaven Corner, I had never been in. So this was my excuse to go in. I was armed. I had and talk to people. Right, I was armed with this idea. I'm writing a book. Okay, and then that was my intro. That was my icebreaker.
Way in, yeah.
Make things awkward. Yeah,
it's a good.
So I went into every
one.
single witch. Yeah, and Crowhaven Corner is daunting. It's tiny, and even though it's a giant black building, and one of the original witch shops back when Lori started the whole thing.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you go inside, it's tiny, and then you go inside in October, it's smashed with people. There's readings going on in the back. There's people buying crystals in the front. There's like they have bouncers these days. Actually, they have bouncers these days because of COVID. But before COVID, they had bouncers. They only let a certain number of people inside because they were so small and there were fire codes. So it's very daunting for somebody who doesn't like. Who I like to go into places and not be noticed, and I might get used to it first and look around and then feel comfortable. But those small shops, you can't do that. You're just right away a center of attention the second you walk in.
And by the way, just for those who aren't familiar with Lori, that is Lori Cabot, possibly the most famous witch in America.
And you got to have a sit down, and you got to sit down and interview her, didn't you?
I did. It was
Oh my God!
Good.
Wait, really?
Yeah. So I interviewed probably over a dozen witches for the book, and she was the big one, right? She's
in her 80s now, right?
What was she like? Was she amazing?
Yeah,
she was such a presence. So I remember she doesn't officially have a shop anymore, but she has ties to one of the shops. And the shop she had a tie to wasn't on Essex Street. It wasn't very atmospheric. It was like in like a very modern strip mall part of the city, still within walking distance of everything, but on the water right there, very suburban looking. And you walked in there, and the person who runs the shop, she let me in, said, yeah, Lori's waiting for you around the corner. And they had set up these curtains in this big space so that it was almost like a tunnel where you walk in and you turn around, and suddenly at the end of this hallway of temporary curtains is this magnificent woman dressed all in black, white hair, tattoo on her face of a swirl, got her like big chunky glasses on, and she's just there. And at this point, right, I'd seen so many clips of her, right? I was just on YouTube like every night going, here's Lori doing Unsolved Mysteries. Here's Lori on this talk show back in the 80s. Here's Lori talking about. So every time somebody did a story about Salem back in the 80s, they had to get a picture of Lori kind of just flowing along the streets in her black outfits. She was so nice and so gentle and so regal and everything I was hoping she would be. Because one of the other things that's a little bit uncomfortable for me is the witches have reputations of being kind of capitalists. I don't know if that's not a bad thing to say, but it's very easy to kind of play the part in Salem. You know, I'm a witch. I set up my witchdom as a business. I'm actually selling you stuff. Yeah. It's a religion, but it's also really tied to the commerce of the city. So there's some again friction. There's nothing but friction in Salem. So I love it.
The country, I think it's very interwoven that it's hard to disentangle that.
Yeah, exactly. And like some of the witch shops are just on the corner of they're the only witch shop in town. There's 1,000 witch shops within a walk, and there you know that most of them are catering to tourists, right? They're not all catering to people of the Wiccan religion. Yeah, exactly. I have like vials of porcupine spines on my.
I got all kinds of stuff. Crap in my house. I love it. Yeah.
So I was really and I also don't believe in like paranormal ability. So like I was very afraid that it would be very awkward, that she would seem like fake, right? And there's other part is because she's been the face of Salem for so long, and because she's been on so much TV, and because she's famous, that she kind of buys into her own legend. And maybe she does, I don't know. But in that hour and a half I had with her, man, she was just everything I wanted her to be. Like my fantasy of her was just completely fulfilled. And she's like this regal witch, just with like this massive history, but also very down to earth. Like it wasn't like, you know, whatever. She talked about family and, you know, raising a kid and like all this other regular stuff. She just so happened to be, you know, the most famous witch, you know, in the United States. So I know it's so cool meeting her.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember I used to read those old Time Life books, if you guys remember Mysteries of the Unknown. Yeah, totally, and she was in there. I remember reading those books when I was a kid, and I was like, oh yeah, that is so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah, and she's so great. Like I don't know, it's like that's another thing about there's a lot of fighting among the witches up there because again, if you can be famous in Salem as a witch, you can turn into a media career. Maybe not these days. There's so many of them and whatever, and so many and it's such a whatever. The USA Today runs a witch story every other day, so it's not as interesting as it was back when Lori was the only witch in town.
Sure.
But you know, so there's some vying for the top witch spot in Salem, but she just, you know, she has it. She's it, and she'll have it. You know, long after she's gone, she'll have it. You know.
That's so cool. So you stayed, I guess, in 2 different places, right? When you were there, yeah. And you made it work. You got lucky. So
really lucky, like so lucky that it shouldn't have worked. It shouldn't have worked.
That means something. Favorite restaurant? Did you have one?
Yeah. So tons of restaurants. And honestly, the restaurant scene since that book has exploded even more. I mean, there's been such a unique restaurant place. In fact, I don't know if I wrote this in the book, but I had a friend who lives in outside of Boston, and I told him, "Hey, my next book is I'm gonna go live in and write about Salem." his comment with me was, "What's in Salem except restaurants?" Like he totally didn't even connect Halloween and weirdness. He went up there every Sunday, and he went up there to Harrison's to get the comics, and he went up there to like eat some good food. So my favorite of all of them is the lobster shanty. It's this tiny little actual shanty. Like there's no floor. It's a cement floor. It's on Artist Row. It's only open. It can't be open in the wintertime because of that. Okay. And I love shellfish. That's this. I can live off every shellfish. Like I don't care what shell it is, but I'll eat it.
Is that where you get the pickle or whatever martini?
Yes. They also
I remember reading about it.
Yeah. So they're famous for their lobster martini. I think they were on Guy Fieri for their lobster martini, which they just take a lobster essence, mix it with vodka, and throw a full lobster claw on the outside of it. So it's kind of cool. But I learned while I was there, they had this thing called I think I learned about quite a little bit before, but it's a hot and dirty pickle martini.
Anything pickles, you got me.
Yeah. So if you're a big fan of dirty martinis, which I am, I'm a huge fan of dirty martinis. It's kind of like that, but kicked up. So it's made of gin or vodka. You can do vodka too. I'm a gin guy, but gin, sriracha sauce, local pickle juice from a local Salem. I don't know what pickle.
I can live on pickle juice.
Yeah, I know. I can too now. And it's just so. And then they what do you call it? The garnish is like a pickle, and it's this pink drink because of sriracha. You know, it mixes with the green pickle juice. It gives this weird shade of pink. And I ordered it every time I ordered it at Lobster Shanty because I mean every night after all the tourists went home, I still needed to like
Right.
eat and something. So I'd go sit at a bar and write my notes down and order a drink. And every time at the lobster shanty, every time I ordered one, everybody would want one because it looks so weird. They didn't all like it, but they would all order one. And it's I don't know. I always tell people I like to fight with my drinks. I like to fight with my, that's why I like gin. And I can't drink vodka because I don't taste it. There's nothing to it. And that's one you fight with. But as soon as you develop the taste for it, you can't have almost anything else. It's like,
yeah, that sounds interesting.
I can't order another drink at Lobster Shanty. I only go to the Lobster Shanty now almost. That's not true, but I kind of want to.
Right.
But I will say this, if you want a great Halloween cocktail. So the other thing about Salem that I haven't seen anywhere else is the restaurants go so far out for Halloween. Like I've never seen in my life. They all decorate, they color like horror characters all over their windows. And then they all do themed cocktail menus. And the Rockefellers, which is right on Essex Street, they have an amazing menu of themed cocktails. So when I go there, and this is only during October, maybe some of September, they have this thing called a candy corn teeny.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what's in it, but it looks like it's yellow and orange candy corn.
Interesting.
Big whipped cream and then candy corn dropped on top of it. And it's super sweet and it's really
that
good.
Sounds right up my alley.
It's really good. It's really good. So I go to Salem like in October or late September. I'm like, oh, do I want, savory sour pickle drink or do I want sweet candy corn teeny drink? Yeah,
but at least you've got both covered.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not Lobster Shanty, but if you but they have so many good restaurants. I always tell people if you don't know what restaurant you like there, go to Rockefellers because it's so centrally located. It's big, they always have a place to sit, and if you get a table at the window, you can just see all the crazy people walking by on Essex Street in costumes and stuff. So
awesome. All right, so what do you call the last chapter? H Day. So Halloween. Is it personally for me? Like that's my favorite day of the year. But I have my own Halloween celebrations that I do, and I just don't think I could do it in Salem. I just don't think I could. I don't know, man. Like you mentioned Anoka, Minnesota, like the Halloween parade they have there. New York City does some crazy stuff. But yeah, I don't know if I could do it. But it was a blast, though, right?
Yeah, so I'm with you on that. So for me, I celebrate Halloween for 2 months. So like literally first week of September, we have decorations up. We are watching spooky movies.
It's Halloween in here all the time.
Yeah. Because I just feel like I have so much I want to squeeze into that season that, I need 2 months of it. So Halloween day for me is usually a denouement or denouement, whatever they say. It's a come down. And it's very, very soft. And like, we go trick-or-treating, but it's not really a highlight. It's just the end of the day. And we watch the movies and we're like, okay, that's 2 months of Halloween over. Let's take a break now and breather. But, so I'm a really laid back guy at Halloween. But of course I had to do H Day like really intensely for that day. And it was exhausting. I was at the end of the day, my feet hurt so bad because there's so much to see, so much to do. And it was fortunately it fell on a weekend day.
Okay.
So that meant Halloween from, the second, like we got up in the morning to carve pumpkins and just watched people in masks walk by our windows because we were on Essex Street in the second half of the month. And it was like right away, they're like there. And then I had a whole checklist of stuff I wanted to do. I wanted to go to go to as many witch ceremonies as I could. We wanted to actually trick or treat in Salem.
I want to do that. I want to go to that parade, or not parade, but they had like a march, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to do that. That I think would be really cool.
That was cool. It's a bunch of the covens get together. I don't know the appropriate term. I'll just say coven, but a bunch of them get together and they gather in downtown Salem. Then they walk a mile to the site of the witch victims,
right?
Which back then it was Gallows Hill Park, so I think they probably have shifted it to the actual memorial these days. But they go down there and they do like a ceremony. I couldn't go. It's a mile walk. I couldn't do it that time. I did the mile walk on my own, but I couldn't do it that time because I had to come back and see another witch ceremony. They do a big circle in the middle of the common and do all that kinds of stuff. And then I had to go to a couple of balls. I went to the witch's ball, and I think went to one other ball. Then I had to just walk around because even if you have no plans on Halloween night, they have bands set up and fireworks and
fireworks. I love it.
So awesome. Yeah, Halloween fireworks. It's a mob scene. But again, because I was there as an observer, it was a lot of fun. But if I was like, what would I want to do this Halloween? I probably wouldn't go to Salem on Halloween night. It's not what I would do as a person.
It gets like scripted for me. So then I guess what I want to say, I guess we could talk about this part forever, but yeah, also part of that for me is the fact that we're taking something horrible that happened. I mean, I've been reading about this stuff my whole life, and you're just exploiting it, I guess. I know this is the whole friction thing you're talking about with so many different ideas. Is this city about tourism? Is it about art and this museum? Is it about just a quiet place people want to live? But the reality is people are coming there because they want to see this witch stuff. So I don't know. There's the idea for me of just having this big party based on awful things that happen kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know, but
yeah, and that's good. It should be. I think if you forget that, then you are probably guilty, right? To me, it's it's knowledgeable dancing on graves is what it is. So I had this theory. I've never tested out that every big thing we do is based on a tragedy at some point, like something bad, like at Christmas.
that's
I don't know, Christmas
interesting thought.
And that's how we deal with it, right? We have to, if we're too solemn about something that happened 400 years ago, then we probably never dealt with it honestly. But if we forget about it at the same time, we are definitely not dealing with it honestly. And I think Salem has accomplished that on accident. So Salem, I think, has accomplished this like memorial on accident. They inadvertently have made sure we remembered the Salem witch trials by being callous, honestly. Not all of them, obviously, but not a lot of them, but like by being callous toward them, somehow they made it so that we remembered it. So it's almost like you can't give credit for it and you can't really blame. That's what I love it. You can't give credit or blame for it. All these random pieces just fell into place so that, now it's Halloween Town. Now it's Monster Town. Now it's all these other things. It's the religious witch central.
Yeah.
But again, you have to remember at all times that it went back to 1692. But then once you remember that, I'm okay with you taking your cheeseburger into the graveyard as long as you don't hurt anything.
Right.
For witches, it is a very important holiday in the wheel of the year.
It's true too.
It's the New Year
outside of Halloween. I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
it's the Wiccan New Year. It's the pagan New Year. So it's a very important day, I think, for them, which would add to the big celebratory kind of feeling of it, because you're celebrating the end of harvest and the beginning of the new year and everything. So,
and I defend all that, but if you took photos of it all and put it together, it would look atrocious. You took pictures of people partying, just drunk in the streets, and then witches trying to have their ceremony, and then historians trying to protect, everything.
Right.
You would definitely hate it in a second.
Yeah.
But the idea of it, if we were all just doing it respectfully, not even respectfully, just doing it mindfully, is kind of what I like about it. But it does get kind of, you like look around at a tourist and you're like, man, this feels a little wrong. But again, I like to feel a little wrong sometimes, so I'm okay with that too.
Well, yeah, awesome though. So yeah, everybody, plug here, of course, read it. Season with the Witch. It's very, very good. So a couple of TV shows and some movies have been done there, and this will segue us into our film discussion. Of course, Hocus Pocus. I mean, we all love that movie, right?
Yeah.
And they just announced the sequel yesterday, didn't they?
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I missed it. No, that's amazing.
So yeah, Disney just announced like 10 new Star Wars series and 10 new Marvel series and 1 million movies all coming to Disney Plus. And one of those,
of course,
hidden in those announcements of like 10 new Star Wars series was Hocus Pocus 2 coming out at some point and going straight to Disney
Plus. I guess when that comes out, I'll have to get Disney for a month.
Yeah, you have to break down and get it. Yeah. So you got to go see the Hocus Pocus house, which of course, once I saw it, you don't see in the movie. I didn't know it was right next to the bay or the water there. That's pretty cool. It's right on the end of the street there. And the house where What's-Her-Face lives in, and they have the Salem Village you can go visit. Bewitched did an episode there. They have the statue, of course, which, by the way, great Army surplus store right outside that statue. They got some camo shorts there. I highly recommend it. But I'm just plugging everything. But that brings us to the Lords of Salem, which they shot quite a bit of. Now, JW, I know you know, and I have a photo of me. I think it's on my company's Facebook. It's me outside of the house there, this the Lords of Salem house. When I finally got to see it, I was so excited to see it. Got my picture up there. So, Lords of Salem, Rob Zombie's 3rd movie, I think. Okay, that music is so great. I love that music.
Oh, it's so creepy.
So I don't know, Tara, do you want to lead us through Lords of Salem?
Sure. So real quick, we're just going to kind of talk about it casually, but real quick first, let me give you guys a rundown on what happens in the movie for those who may not have seen it yet, which, by the way, please rectify that, go see it. Or for those who saw it a while ago and maybe want to just be reminded, just a little
that's right,
memory jogger there.
That's right.
So Heidi, who is a descendant of the Reverend Jonathan Hawthorne.
Heidi Hawthorne, yes. That's right.
Yes, it's actually Adelheid Hawthorne.
Yes, Sherri Moon Zombie, Rob Zombie's very hot wife.
She goes by Heidi, and she's a descendant of Reverend Jonathan Hawthorne, who was a judge at the Salem witch trials. And he really was, I think, a judge at the Salem witch trials. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You
he
mentioned
was the big
Hawthorne
one.
a lot in your book. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I
right.
thought. Okay, so she's one of his descendants, and she's a shock jock with two of her friends, Herman, aka Whitey, and Herman. And yes, you heard me right. They're both named Herman.
Ken Forey.
Yeah.
And then an LP, or for those of you babies out there, it's a record. It's a thing we used to listen to music
records
on.
are back. Records are back now, though.
Yeah, that's true. They're back in a
Yeah.
retro way now. So maybe you know what a record is.
Right.
So a record is sent to her specifically by a band, I'll put it in quotes, called the Lords, who they then on the air dubbed the Lords of Salem. It has an ominous sounding song on it, the one you
awesome.
heard me doing
That's pretty
earlier.
good too. That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Great.
Pretty proud of that impression of it. So they play the song on the air, and it bewitches all the women of Salem. And they, at the same time as they're playing it, they have this scholar on Salem's witch trials who's on the air. So he starts trying to figure out what's going on with this creepy song. And as he's doing that, Heidi just plunges into insanity, urged on by her witchy landlady and the landlady's two friends.
Yeah.
Nice trio of witches there, which I love.
My friend Dee Wallace is in.
Yes,
is
Dee
one of them.
Wallace,
Yeah.
the inimitable.
Yeah.
And Heidi then attends a performance that the Lords of Salem are giving for free. And at that show, all the women of Salem are bewitched again, and Heidi gives birth to the Antichrist.
Which is always a fan favorite.
And then, yeah, and she has, there's this amazing shot of her with the like the Virgin Mary, but with the red cape and standing on all the piles of the dead women. It's amazing.
Yes.
And then it ends with the very next day, we hear a news story on the radio that says that there was a mass suicide at the show and that Heidi is missing. And that's the story.
And there's your Lords of Salem. So, okay, so Rob Zombie is my favorite performer, musician, person, right? Like, I've been listening to White Zombie since I was like 12 years old. I've seen his shows 4 or 5 times. I'm wearing his t-shirt. I love his movies. I mean, that is like my dude. He's an artist. He's an incredibly talented guy. Halloween, his remakes were, not terrible. But this, I mean, don't forget, and as you know, JW, he's from Haverhill in Massachusetts, of course. So he grew up with this stuff. He kind of had this knowledge of this stuff. So he finally put pen to paper into film, I guess you would say, and made this movie. I think it's his best movie. I just think it's so, I don't even want to say supernatural. It's just so interesting. It's super creepy, and it does a really good job of kind of telling us this different story of everything. He uses his wife. That's his wife, Sherri Zombie. She's in all. He uses the same cast members. He loves these old 70s, 60s horror film folks like Ken Forey from Dawn of the Dead, Dee Wallace, Meg Foster, who was much older than that.
Patricia Quinn.
Yep, There you go. He uses all these folks in his movies. I think Sherri Moon, she does a really good job in this. I think she's very good. I love all the locations, the little, like the house in downtown we talked about, the town common they show. What's the building in downtown that they show?
The old town hall.
Is it the old town? Okay. What is the name of that cemetery?
It's
Greenlawn,
Greenmount,
right?
Green
Greenlawn.
something.
I have
Greenlawn?
not been there. Okay.
So I actually found, my husband found, I'll give him the credit for it, credit where credit's due. My husband found a website called Then and Now Movie
good one.
Locations.
Oh.
And they have
I think I know this.
they have pictures of a bunch of the movie
Wow.
locations
It's a good
for
site.
Lords of Salem.
I'm a big fan of visiting filming locations, especially horror movies. And so it's almost ruined me. So like me and my wife will sit down to watch a movie, and then within 5 minutes they show the establishing shot. We're like, okay, pause. Where's the shot? What's the city?
Oh yeah, me
Where's the
too.
site?
I gotta know.
And I will say for Lords of Salem, I watched Lords of Salem the first time in Salem.
Oh,
And-
nice.
Yeah, I was at a friend's house who lived down there, right on the heritage line, the red line that goes through the city. And this old house. We watched that, but because I was making a day of it, I wanted to watch Lords of Salem at night with a drink, whatever. So during the day, we just tried to find all the sites, even though we hadn't watched the movie yet. And so we went to the cemetery, went to the house. I missed half of them, of course. I hadn't watched the movie yet, but I knew I would have to go see these sites. And if I was going to see the movie at night and then go home and not be able to see the places where it filmed, it was gonna be a big bummer to me because I'm just a huge fan of like the space of geography of the movie. And
So
when I
I'll
heard
tell
So you said you lived on Essex Street your second half of the month there. Were you anywhere near that apartment building that she's in that's on Essex and Hamilton Streets?
that house is right down the road from the Witch Museum. It's only like a 5-minute walk to the Witch Museum, though, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it's near the Ropes
Yeah.
house. The Ropes house is where
That's
they
right.
filmed Hocus Pocus. So
That's
I was
right.
actually closer to that
Oh,
house.
cool.
And my first house I lived in for the first half of the month was on Chestnut Street, which is this house full of mansions. It's all built by like maritime captains that struck it rich. And I lucked out and got it in there, and that was really close to the house. So if you go to the Ropes Mansion, you just keep walking like 2 blocks and you get to the Lords of Salem house.
Yep.
Oh,
That
nice.
sounds right.
That was such a cool apartment building.
It was. So the inside was a set, but
Of
if you look at the I don't know if it's still there on Zillow, but you could look inside that building and it had like a mural on the wall in real life, and it obviously wasn't like cool. It wasn't
So
Rob
is
Zombie
it-
aesthetic.
Yeah.
Is it apartments or is it like just someone's giant house on the corner?
It was originally a house. I think it's been broken up though.
Yeah.
Knowing Massachusetts,
Oh, yeah.
it's a giant house that's been broken
those
up.
big huge houses from 100 years ago. Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
apartments now,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was one of the first stops for me when we got there. I remember. No, I really like that movie. I think it is just very odd. And I mean, the shots of, the witches by the fire and them bleeding and, taking their clothes and having their Sabbath and just, that was intense. I mean, there's some stuff in there that's kind of hard to watch, like desecrations of religious, crosses and just the way they do it, and they give birth and it's like a lobster bait. Well, no, not for me, but for some people, that's something that they watch and they may take as seriously offensive. I don't know. I'm just saying. But no,
Yeah, fair point.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. So
then again, if you were if you were, someone who didn't think that was what you wouldn't be watching it anyway. So it doesn't matter. But
I would say it's the only Rob Zombie movie that my wife has watched.
Okay.
I think probably the only one I would suggest to her just aesthetically. So I followed Rob Zombie, same. In high school, it was all white zombie. And then I kind of got disconnected for a while. And then I remember I was in Florida and we're in the middle of a hurricane watch. And a bunch of us had got a cabin in the middle of the state to sit out the hurricane from the coast. And I hadn't seen TV for months because of my situation. And we walked into this cabin and the TV was on and Dragula was playing the video.
Ooh.
And I was like, this is,
yeah.
I love this aesthetic. This is gorgeous. I love this thing
Good
and I found out
video.
Rob Zombie, what he become, he like evolved from white zombie into this thing, this like aesthetic. And I love the song, love the music, love the look of it. And then of course, as a horror fan, and just followed his movie career from the beginning.
Right.
And I do think, I think Devil's Reject is a brilliant film. It's a brilliant film that I can never recommend to anybody, but it's a brilliant film.
Did you like 3 from Hell, the third one?
No.
Have you seen it?
No, so with him, it's like I could probably almost track it, right? So I think House of a Thousand Corpses was landmark for what it did.
Yeah, I love it.
I can't recommend to people as a great
Dr.
movie. But,
Satan.
yeah, if you're like into like just wild Rob Zombie nonstop, just
LSD
he only had
trip.
one movie in him. There's brilliance in that movie. Then I thought Devil's Reject was brilliant. I'll put
Very
Devil's
good.
Reject up against most horror movies.
It's
and then,
pretty
like I
good.
said, the Halloween movie I wasn't into, but mostly not because of Rob Zombie, mostly because I don't want to learn Mike Myers' entire story.
The whole backstory. Yeah.
And then 2, I actually liked Halloween 2.
I
but
like
thought it
2
wasn't
better. Yes, I like 2 better also.
visually is great. I just thought it was like not a Mike Myers movie. Like if you'd put some other monster in the place of Mike Myers, I think we'd all find that brilliant. And then this movie was when I was like, man, this guy's, because these days, if you say Rob Zombie, you immediately think of his like redneck white trash aesthetic. And you're like, okay, that's kind of cool.
He loves that.
But he does it so much that people get tired of it. But I think this movie, Lords of Salem, is where it fits the best.
Right. He's not using his same. Right. He's not using the whole. The white trash story of the the drug addict or whatever. Well, she's a drug addict.
Yeah,
This is
it's
a
in there,
totally
but
different story.
It's organic. It should be there. And then it's like a story. He's got like, it's a story for Rob Zombie. He's got like 2 researchers talking at one point. You don't see that in a Rob Zombie movie.
No.
Usually it's like 5 seconds in blood, 5 seconds in blood. Because he's like this guy investigating the history and past. There's like, it's a throwback to obviously the 60s and 70s occult movies.
Sure.
I felt like that so much.
Right.
Yeah.
that's why it's so good.
Yeah, I think so.
Like
updated it.
Black Sunday and
Oh, Black Sunday's
like there
great.
was so much 67 because this is I have this in common with your wife. This is the first Rob Zombie movie I've seen. And the first time I've seen it. So this was new to me, his whole aesthetic and everything.
Oh, I love that.
I found I really enjoyed it. It was I think there was something about the enjoyment, the gleefulness of the descent
Yeah.
that I loved. Like the little old like the witches of a certain age. I'll call them. But I loved them. I loved their like little like bickering with each other, and like I loved that it ended badly. Like my
Rob
husband and
Zombie
I are big
movies
fans
usually
of stuff like The Witch and stuff like that, where it like does end badly.
Yeah.
And that's why I like his movies. They usually end badly, which for people, yes, which I like.
It showed like, I don't know, it showed like I thought it was showing like he was not maturing. That's a bad word to use, but like he was definitely kind of feeling out his director chops, right? Because again,
that was a filmmaker's movie, right?
It was, yeah, because he can make whatever 3 from Hell and 31 without even thinking about it, right?
31, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he'll just make it, and nobody really cares about it, and he didn't even have to try, you know. But it felt like with Lords of Salem, he was trying to do something a little bit, not lose himself, but try something a little different. I think it worked. Like I think the first time I watched it, I wasn't sure because I was expecting a Rob Zombie joint. You know, I was expecting, you know, everything I'd seen before then.
Right.
So that's why I'm super curious, Tara, that you got to see it without any Rob Zombie baggage. Like I always wondered what that felt like. I had tons of Rob Zombie baggage.
Right. I could never imagine that exactly.
Well, I'll tell you. Yeah. I'll tell you what it felt like then. It was, you know, so I wouldn't say it was like my favorite horror movie or anything by any means, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. Visually, it was awesome visually.
Oh.
I mean, there was just so much there.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool looking, and some of the things he does with flashes of things and, you know, in the middle of scenes of the vignettes, I just thought it was really cool. Like it was literally the movie where you're like, this is cool.
It's definitely
and I loved how I
evil.
presented Salem. Like it was like anytime they went off a set, right? All of the sets are like music video sets. They're gorgeous and like interesting to look at. And the second they got outside of the sets and into Salem, it's like overcast and like very desaturated.
I love that.
I love that version of Salem.
That.
It's like my favorite version of Salem. It's like, I wish Salem was like this all the time, just wandering around the cobblestone streets with like gray around you and stuff. I like his version of Salem a lot.
I loved everything she wore. My husband was like, you would dress like her if you could just get away with it. He was like, you would just dress like her.
Women with dreadlocks. Thumbs up. Thumbs up.
Yes. Yeah, the dreadlocks were cool.
I love the scene they shoot in the cemetery. Yeah, with the leaves falling and the color. And there is one shot where I feel like I could almost see myself behind that camera. Remember, she's sitting down after she has that nightmare in the church and she's like smoking a cigarette. And it's that shot of her, and the focus is so perfect. I imagine it's a 35 or a 50 millimeter lens probably. And that church is just, you know, kind of blurred out, and it's just so symmetrical, like a Stanley Kubrick shot. Like, I just like fell in love with that stuff. I just love that. It's so great.
I think you're right. I think because he kind of films his movies in album covers, right? Like he could cut up his movies using album covers, but the album covers in Salem and Lords of Salem are much more architected. Like they're not like crazy heavy metal album covers. They are, like you said, there's this like mood to them and this piece to them and it's like symmetry and like, I don't know. Obviously he goes a little heavy metal in his sets when he's like, instead of glowing crosses and stuff. But again, his outside shots, which is so, I don't know. I've seen that movie probably 6 times now, and I usually almost always for a research project. Like the first time I watched it was so I could go see the sites. Second time I watched it was probably for the book. Third time I watched it, I was probably writing about it in the book. And this time was to prep for you guys. Yeah. So I always have a reason to watch it, and it's just grown on me and grown on me and grown on me until it's like almost become a comfort film. Like it's as weird as it to say, I put it on in the next room and just listen to like.
And how can you not love that scary chicken wing arm baby? Like. Really weird. How can you see that and not love it?
Or the witch, that keeps popping up when she's walking from one room and she's there, and then she's up in the corner of the kitchen.
Oh my God, she's like standing on the counter, just like.
And Meg Foster,
and she has those creepy blue eyes, those like ice scary, blue eyes. Ooh,
so there was one thing. Speaking of Kubrick, I don't know if you guys got this vibe. I don't know what the painting is. It might be a famous painting. I don't even know about it. Her bedroom, with the moon, the man in the moon deal, but there the wall behind her is painted, and those two like glass tables. When I'm watching that, I'm seeing the Korova milk bar scene at the beginning of whatchamacallit, Clockwork Orange.
So
I don't
that's
know. I'm seeing that
from the movie, the really old movie, The Man in the Moon.
Okay, I knew there was something I was missing. But
early movies.
Yeah, one of the first films, one of the Lumiere brothers films. Yeah,
but that's what I see. Yeah. I guess when I see that though, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, except Tara, of course, and we love dogs on this show. What happened to Troy? Right, her dog. We never found out. What
That's
happened
right.
to
And it
Troy?
ends with like a nice little
no,
vignette
I
of them playing.
noticed. I
Yeah, that
noticed
vignette was
specifically
creepy.
that the witches, when they were taking her in the end to the down the hallway,
Right.
that they shut him back up in
the bathroom.
in her
But then we never
in
saw
the
him again.
bathroom.
Right.
So I presume that they
Okay.
shut him in there because they may be witches, but they don't want to hurt innocent dogs.
Good. We like that. We don't like the
And that he was found by a friend, and maybe like Whitey took him home.
Okay, so he has a new home now.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
fine.
he was
He's fine.
rehomed happily.
Yes.
Happily rehomed.
A new forever home. Yeah,
Yes.
and I love that vignette. It is weird. Like she's playing with the dog, and all of a sudden, like boom, and it just ends.
Mhm.
But before that, or maybe after, I love the vignette of all the downtown sites in Salem too, like the Bewitched thing, and they
Mhm.
show
Yeah.
all those. Cool. That was really cool. That was I like that a lot.
Yeah, he really embraced it. I mean,
He did.
Obviously he has a history with it from Haverhill. I don't know if you've ever been there as a kid, but obviously people in
I've been.
Massachusetts have a history with it.
I've
And
been.
he embraced it. He's like he really wanted to make a Salem movie. I remember when he was filming it, I was following the news reports avidly, and I was like, oh, he's here now. He's here now. He's
Oh, I
here
wish
now.
I could have been to watch that home.
Yeah, and I tried to get over there. I just couldn't make it happen. But like, I don't know, he just really kind of embraced it. In ways that, I mean, Salem is actually not a well filmed movie location. Really, there's not only Hocus Pocus is the only famous one. There's some very, very independent ones. Now we have Hubie Halloween, of course. There's also filmed there.
Yes.
But nobody else has embraced Salem quite like Zombie did. It felt like a real place as opposed to like a fantasy Halloween place,
Yes.
like in Hocus Pocus or even in Hubie Halloween.
Yep.
And I wonder,
Sure.
you know, with you talking about all the sort of back and forth with Salem and the word escaped my mind, but you know, the different
friction?
factions. Yeah, the friction is the friction that I wonder how people felt about him making that particular movie
Yeah, that's
in Salem.
interesting.
Like,
That's
I
a good
wonder how the
point.
Wiccans felt. I wonder how the people who just live there and are like
Yeah,
regular everyday folks felt.
im- you can imagine the conversations, because on one hand, we're all starstruck when you hear about a movie being filmed nearby, right? We're
Sure.
like, oh, it's awesome. We don't care. Use my house, paint it. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, second, you're like, oh crap, the tourists are coming now, right?
well, and then as a Wiccan, you're like, oh, another movie about evil witches. Great.
how bad are we? How bad are we?
That's-
portrayed?
Thanks.
That's
Yeah.
part
Yeah,
of
how
living
bad are we
there.
going to look in this one?
That's part of living there, though.
I'm sure you did. It was funny too, because you could see during the filming and site before, like Rob Zombie would start visiting places, and like he went to Count Orlox. There's a picture of him with one of whoever runs. I don't think it was James, but somebody. I mean, it was James, and him at the Witch Museum and all these places. So like, I don't know, just a really cool because again, it's an intersection of a guy who's got a huge horror rep, right?
Mhm.
And Salem, which has a huge horror rep. And I just love that idea of like the person and the place just kind of meeting, and what came out of that is Lords of Salem. And I'm really, really jazzed by it.
It is kind of surprising people haven't done more stuff there, but I mean, I
Yeah.
guess that's probably okay with a lot of people that live there, probably. So
It's
they're
funny
not-
because you have to be okay with it, right? So if
Yeah.
you got to film in Salem, Salem's going to be there. It's like it's a city that's like, you can't pretend it's any other place, right? You have to admit. I'm gonna have to talk about tourism. We're gonna have to show the Bewitched statue. I can't pretend it's any place USA, or any place Massachusetts even. You have to embrace it, and he definitely did. He's like, this
Which
is
may be
Salem.
why there aren't tons of movies set there, because
think
it's
so.
it's too hard. You have
Yeah.
to make the town one of the characters.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
the star. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can't just be one of the characters. It has to be one of the major characters.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
it's-
why'd you film this in Salem? I don't know. They just live in Salem. Nope, that's not
Yeah,
good enough.
nope,
They have to
no,
be
no.
Halloween. They have to be
Uh-uh.
witches. They have to do all this stuff. You
Right.
know?
But yeah, no, definitely interesting spin. I like the ending. Yeah, that's crazy at the end when she's like that, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. She's like an idol, I guess, right? And she's
Yeah.
on top of all the dead. That was wild. But
I've seen it interpreted as Bride of Satan. Is what I've seen it interpreted as.
yeah, and then she gives birth to the lobster
Yes.
baby, whatever the hell that thing is supposed to be. And then
oh my gosh, it was like
lobster to
it
me
was
is-
it was a crawfish or something.
Right,
like a
I know.
crawdaddy. It was
Yes.
yeah. I didn't. It was not. It was yes.
It's very,
Scary.
very very Cronenberg for sure. Maybe
Oh,
Cronenberg.
it was.
Yeah.
Body horror.
Now
for
you've hit on
sure.
one of my favorites. I love Cronenberg.
We got to get to some Cronenberg at some point too.
Oh,
need
we
to
have
really get into
to.
that.
Mm.
Yeah, but
We have got to.
yeah, no. Overall, I think, like I said, I love most of his movies. I think it's awesome. Yeah, really cool. I'm glad he did all that. So, We just did a lot of Salem right there, guys. That was
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
In December. We did it in December, which
Yeah.
I think is super admirable. I love like it feels like a little bit of a time travel for me. Like, right, come upstairs, all my Christmas trees up and all
Right.
the holly and tinsels up, and I come down into my basement and it's Halloween. I love it.
Right.
It's great.
So,
Yep.
so you are going to be on air with us right after Gremlins,
Oh, that's right.
which was our holiday movie.
Yes.
So,
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
so you're our New Year movie, I guess.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll
Perfect.
work.
I'll take it. Yeah.
So here's I wanted
Right
to-
about then is when you start wishing for Halloween. You're like, oh, it's January. What's
Yes.
next?
Counting
No
the
good
months.
holidays until
No,
Halloween.
I'm already wishing for it when I'm hearing Christmas music. I'm like, oh God, give me Halloween back.
Right, exactly. So here is my suggestion. I don't know if this was on. Maybe I missed it. Maybe we just mentioned it. Okay, great movie, The Good Son, twisted movie. Have you been to the house near Marblehead where they lived that was supposed to be Maine in the movie? Have you been to that house?
Yeah, outside it, and it was also filmed in Marblehead Cemetery,
Yes.
which is one of the best cemeteries in all New England.
Oh, so
The well scene was in Marblehead.
So we found, we looked it up last time we were there, and we found the house where it was. And that house is one of the most beautiful houses I've ever seen, just sitting on a bay, like picturesque. That house must sell for $3-4 million.
And where is this? Because
yeah.
not Salem.
No, this is in
Next
technically.
town over, basically.
Is it Marblehead, I guess? Technically?
Yes, Marblehead. And then
Yeah.
there's also a restaurant nearby or an inn that was filmed there as well. But I always reason why The Good Son sticks with me so much is because while I was there in Salem, I went to Marblehead Cemetery because one of the victims is buried there.
Yes.
And because Hocus Pocus was filmed there.
That's right.
So there's a lot of reasons to go. And it's a beautiful cemetery. It's one of the
Yes,
best
it
in New
is.
England. And the well they used, there's a scene where like him and Elijah Wood are like
Dumps
walking around a well.
the cigarettes
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ready to push him in and stuff. And I went there to see. I saw the well like years and years before I did the Salem book. And I went back there and I couldn't find the well anymore. While I was in Salem that year, 2015, while I was living in Salem, and I couldn't find it. I was like, I know it was right here. I looked at my old pictures. I pulled them up, and I was like, it's not here anymore. So then I contacted the local historical society. I was like, there used to be a well in Marblehead Cemetery, right? They're like, no, there's never a well in Marblehead Cemetery. I'm like, are you sure? I swear. I sent them a photo, and they're like, oh, they built that for the Good Son. And it just sat there for 10 years.
No kidding.
Yeah, made it out of stone. It wasn't an actual well. It stopped at the ground.
Oh, yeah.
So it was almost a fire pit. And they left it there for like a decade. And then one
that's
day just took
cool.
it down.
That's
So,
hilarious.
That's good. Yeah. So yeah, if anyone wants to do an oddity or a road trip, yeah, go check out that house. It actually is on a little street full of mansions. I mean, you gotta.
Yeah.
If you're making 50 grand, you're not living on that street. Let's just put it that way.
Marblehead's a really cool place.
Oh,
really,
it's
just in
beautiful.
general.
Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, I don't know, guys. I think we touched on everything.
I think we did
JW,
everything and more.
Where can people find you online and everywhere?
Oddthingsi'veseen.com. That's my home base. You'll find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles of my visits. You'll find where to get my books. You'll find what I'm doing at any given moment because I'm probably
And
posting it on social
you're writing
media.
fiction now too.
I am. So
Right.
my last year was my first adult novel, 12 Nights at Rotter House. It was a haunted house novel. And then my next novel is actually a children's horror novel. It comes out next like 6 months. It comes out in August, and that's called The Smashed Man of Dread End. So I'm writing spooky stuff, whether it's for kids or for adults or for nonfiction. So it's all I can get out of me, I guess.
Nice.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Okay,
yeah. I was gonna say one more thing, but
Go for it.
no. I was gonna say
Nope.
mention if you want to join a proud member, you can join the Otis Club, and you will get my my newsletter, which I enjoy reading every month that comes in.
Oh, and I super appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
so what Matt's talking about is I have a Patreon, like just about everybody does these days, and I frame it as a club because I'm uncomfortable with the idea of somebody just supporting my life. So I try to make it something I can give back with.
Mhm.
So it's a club, and there's a newsletter every week where I try to detail what oddities I've been to. There's news in there. It's like a 1,500 word newsletter,
Yep.
and then there's like other perks as well. But anybody that's in the club is like in my great book. I meet people, I become deeper friends with them. I hang with them. Like the club is like the people in the Otis Club are like I don't know. they just mean a lot to me. So I really appreciate you joining that. For
I
sure.
love it.
And
yeah.
they can find out how to do that on your website.
Yeah, it's Patreon, and also they can go to just patreon.com/JWOker. So it's pretty straightforward.
And the
Very good.
website again is oddthingsi'veseen.com.
Yeah. The way you remember that
And,
is it's acronymed Otis.
I just call it Otis.
Otis.
Yeah, that's how I refer to it.
So for us guys, if you'd liked the podcast, you can join
And you did.
the Otis Patreon, and you can, and you did like this podcast.
You liked it.
And you can rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you're listening, Apple Podcasts, whatever the heck they're calling it now, wherever else you may be listening, so that more people can find us. And don't forget, you can also send us your movie suggestions, your thoughts on movies that we've watched so far. Really, anything you want to say to us, like,
oh, hey,
bring
JW.
it on.
Here's the challenge that I joked with for a while. Tara is not in love with Children of the Corn. And I have challenged her to watch every sequel.
No, we need an actual listener. Not
I know, so it doesn't count.
Not a friend of the podcast guest, but an actual listener has to challenge me. That's all that's saving me so far.
I don't know if I could do that to somebody. Every single sequel, like even like Isaac 666, whatever that one was.
Of course.
God. There's so many of them too. I looked it up. There's a lot of them.
It's not gonna happen.
It's Children of the Corn's close to I used to live in a cornfield actually, it's like surrounded my house.
Oh, Burkittsville.
Burkittsville,
cornfields everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. This was actually in Northeast Maryland in Cecil County. And it was literally, I lived in the attic. I could see for miles of cornfield. It was like surrounded my house. It was like one of those things like they took plots of land from a farmer and built houses on them or whatever. So Children of the Corn has always been in my head. Always been in my head.
Did you ever see He That Walks Behind?
He That Walks Behind the Rose.
I never saw it. I was scared to go in there. I couldn't go in the cornfield. Even though it was like 5 steps from my house. I couldn't do it because of that movie.
Nope.
Oh God. It's so silly. It's just okay. Anyways, you can email us your movie suggestions, your thoughts on movies you watched, your challenges for us, whatever. Email them to us at thescarymovieproject@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, y'all.
Good night, Canada.
The Scary Movie Project podcast is produced by Tara Garwood and Matt Lolich. Learn more at thescarymovieproject.com.